Kooks! Welcome back to Psychotrash TV. I'm your host, Martin Lopez. Today, I'm going to show you how to take your stock Harley handlebars and recycle them into some riserless bars. So, essentially what we're going to do, we're going to take these stock Harley handlebars. These came off of a Sportster 1200. You know, you might have some bars laying around that you picked up for cheap, or someone gave you a set, or you have your stock bars and you're just tired of the way they feel. They're not very comfortable and you don't want to dish out, you know, fucking $200 on a set of bars. So what do? You build your fucking own. And I'm going to show you how to do that. You know, a lot of people think, oh fuck, you know, I gotta go and spend $100 plus on a new set of bars when you have a set of bars already, and all you have to do is cut them in a few right spots and you got a brand new set of bars. So essentially what I'm gonna do, this is a printout and I just cut it out. Basically, we're gonna take our actual handlebars and cut them right down the center. Now this doesn't apply to every single stock Harley bar. Some bars have a more narrow base, so you might have to pick up some 1-inch tubing. This is 1-inch 0120 watt knot pipe. And in essence, what we're gonna do is we're gonna chop it down the middle and then we're gonna bring them into each other. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna put two pieces of the tube that we take off the center, and we're gonna put them 3.5 inches center to make the risers for your bike. And I know what you're thinking, like, what if I don't put it dead center? Well, I'm gonna show you how to do it on your bike. So basically what we're gonna do is we cut the bars down the middle. And then when you look at your handlebars, wherever there's a bend, there's gonna be a start and an end to this bend. And if you usually run your fingers over the bar, you're gonna feel where that bar starts and finish that bend. So from the beginning of that bend down here, 1 inch in, we're gonna cut. That'll give us a 1-inch amount of material to weld back together. I'm just gonna say, for the sake of the video, that's it there. And we're gonna do it on both sides. Now you don't have to follow my process and do it with, you know, tape. You don't have to print it out and tape it up and cut it yourself. But if you don't have the same bars I do and you're questioning whether or not you're gonna have enough material left over after you cut it in pieces, feel free to do so. That way you're not cutting up your bars and then you're just like, fuck, I don't have enough material after you've already cut them. Now I'm not telling you guys to go and take your bars off your bike and fuck them up. That's not what I want you guys to do. If you don't feel like you have the skill set level to do it, don't do it. Find someone that does and let them do it for you. Now in theory, once we do all these cuts, we should come up with this design. Let's give it a go, shall we? You're gonna wanna take your measuring tape and measure it dead center of the bar. In this case, dead center is 1 3/4 inches. Like I was saying before, every bend has a start and an end to it. And if you run your fingers, you can actually feel it hump down and then hump back up. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna find this bottom hump. We're gonna kind of mark it there. We're gonna mark it there. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna take a 1/2 inch from here in on each side, and that's gonna give us our width between here and here to use the remainder of this centerpiece for our risers. Now you want to make sure that your line is as straight as possible because you're going to be using that as a reference line to cut your bars through, and you want them to be as straight as you possibly can get them because you're going to weld them back together. You don't want to sit there and weld up a big gap. The more time you take prepping anything you're going to weld, the better that weld's going to turn out to be, the less trouble you're going to have welding it together. So now you have your 3 cut lines. You have this one, which we're gonna cut first, and then you have these 2. It's funny, these are stock Harley bars, yet they're fucking crooked. They're so fucking crooked. It's ridiculous. A lot of Harley bars that don't have the wiring run through have these little holes where they put the clamps in to hold all your wiring in place. We're gonna plug those holes up because I like plugging holes. Anyhow, let's go ahead and cut this up. Don't forget to wear your safety equipment. If you don't have any, fucking buy some. Don't be stupid, don't lose an eye. Let's go ahead and cut this some bitch. By now you should have two halves that look just like this. Essentially what we're gonna do, end result's gonna look something like that. And as you can see, we have enough material left over to use as the risers. And these fit right in there. Perfect, snug little fit. Congratulations, you've made it this far and you haven't fucking killed anyone. Good on you. So, I filmed myself welding together the two halves, but unfortunately, my fucking camera decided to take a shit and it only filmed the sound and it got stuck on one of the frames and it didn't film me welding shit. So, instead of showing you how I clamped it down and welding it, I'm gonna do an after video of how I clamped it down and welded it. What you want is you want these two halves to be flat and you want these back pieces to be fairly straight with each other. And you want these two angles to be pretty much the same as well. If you have to, you know, draw a line straight down, take the angles that there are and draw a line so that you know where they're at, and draw a line up here so you know how far these two have to touch. If you remember earlier in the video, I mentioned how crooked these bars were, so these are gonna be a little bit crooked, but you don't want that wobble. That wobble is gonna throw you off a little bit, but for the sake of the video, I'm not gonna bother trying to take that wobble out. I'm just gonna play through it. What you're gonna do is you're gonna take your clamps, you're gonna clamp your workpiece down on a solid flat table. Once you're at this point, all you have to do is do a little tack weld here, and preferably somewhere on the top if you can get in between the two. If not, take your clamp off, weld one there, weld on the back, and then weld it all the way through. Eventually you will have to clean that weld off, so don't worry about how ugly it is, just make sure you got a really good penetration. So after you've got that bar welded, this should be your outcome. It might differ if you're using different types of bars, but if you're using the same bars I am, this will be your outcome. Now, what we're gonna do next is we're gonna weld the two riser parts down like that. And I'm gonna show you how to prep these to do it because we're gonna have to cut some angles into these and we're gonna have to weld the bungs into place. Don't forget to clean your work pieces off as best as you can. If you don't clean them, you're gonna get all these burrs in place and that just makes for shitty, you know, practice. It'll make for a shitty weld. If you have a deburring tool, deburr the inside of your workpiece and make sure you clean it. And this is what I meant by you're gonna want to cut it as straight as possible. I don't know if you guys can see that. It's a little crooked. I cut it a little bit crooked. I'm gonna be able to weld it straight up and down anyways because I have my little magnetic angle welder helper things. If you have them, good on you. If you don't, just try to weld this straight up as possible when you put your bungs into place. Because as you can see, it's gonna leave a gap and you don't want them to be crooked. You want them to sit up straight up and down. And I'll show you guys how I do that in a little bit. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It's the 10 crack commandments. Alright, so your next step is you're gonna figure out the height that you want, right? So you got your marking there on what height you want to go with those bars, with those risers. What you want to do now is you want to take your bar, you want to put the center of this where your line is for the 3.5 mark. And you see how that's not going to work. You're going to have a big gap to weld. So you're going to have to cut it at an angle so that that'll fit and sit in there nice and tight. What we're going to do is you're just going to do an angle there, about the same angle as your roundness down here, and that should be good. I don't know what's up with my fucking camera, but it keeps cutting out during filming and it just gets stuck on a frame, but it picks up all the sound. And I can't really do this twice because I don't have extra material for it. I'm trying to do it with the material provided by the bars. Anyways, if you did everything correctly and if you understood what I said, what I meant, you should have two pieces looking like this. They're gonna go right here. And don't worry if they're a little bit like that. We still have to kind of notch these out and I'll show you how to do that. But for the most part, that's exactly what you want. As I was saying before, you want to make sure they're the same exact height. If they're off even by 1/8 of an inch, you're gonna see a difference while writing, and you don't want that. Make sure they're exactly the same height. You want two pieces that look like this. Anyways, we're gonna clean these up, we're gonna weld them on. Now what you want to do in order to make sure that your handlebar sits in there good is you kind of want to dish this out just like that. You want to take off the top. Some people use like a hole saw, tubing notcher. You obviously probably don't have one. There's this guy, his name is the Fabrication series, I believe. He does a really good video on how to do tube notching without a tube notcher. I'm not going to get that into it. All I'm going to do is just kind of use the bevel that flap wheels kind of have, and I'm just going to kind of grind into it just like so. Alright, so now that you've beveled out the top ends of that, you should have two pieces that look like this. And this is why you need them. You need to bevel that out because you need to be able to fit them in that angle that you're going to weld them in. You don't bevel them out, it's going to be such a pain to weld those in later. Now you're going to want to weld the bungs into the bottom ends of these, and that's what's going to become your riser. Make sure that you get your measurements correct before you even weld those bungs on. You want to make sure that those are exactly where they need to be. They're exactly the same height each, because when you go to put them on your bike and you go to try to put your bars on it and you go to tack weld it, one side's going to be shorter than the other and you're going to be riding around like this. You don't want to do that. So make sure those two pieces are the same exact height or you're going to be paying for it later. Now you can go ahead and weld your bungs into place. So these are at the point where you want to weld your bars. What you're going to need to do is you're going to need to take off these two bolts connecting your risers, and that'll allow your riser to come off, and it'll take off the complete handlebar assembly. And all you have to do is put it down for a second, or you can take it completely apart. For the sake of not having to take apart this throttle assembly that I have that's a pain in the ass to put together, I'm just going to leave it there and I'm going to show you what you need to do. These are the bars complete, and they're going to go like so. Once you take off your risers, you're going to put on your two risers that you created. You want to have someone come and tack weld them, and you want to hold the bar in place where you want these bars to sit at your comfort level. And once you have that ready, you just have someone tack it, tack it. When you put these risers in place, you want to make sure they're tightened down fairly snug. You don't want any movement in them, because what's going to happen is when you go to weld them, they're going to warp, and then when you go to take them off and put them back together, they're not going to fit right. So make sure you snug those bolts back down really tight. For the sake of me not having to tear my bike apart, let's assume you've got your risers in your triple tree and you're ready to weld. What you're going to want to do is you're going to want to take the top half of the bars, and you're going to want to try to center them as best as you possibly can. I went ahead and put two lines where I know the 3.5 inches to center of these two pieces of tube, and I'm going to put the bar, you want your bar to be level up top, and you want them to be as comfortable as possible, and that's what I was meaning. And you want to get a buddy of yours to get him to tack weld it, and you can go forward, you can go back, whatever you feel comfortable with. That's the whole point of building your own bars, is so that you can do this on your own and do them to your liking. So I'm gonna go ahead and say that's fine right there. I'm gonna go ahead and tack weld this into place. Now, if you did everything right, this should be your end result. Not half bad, huh? They look a little crooked. They can probably use to come up a little more, but I'll fix them later. Just make sure you get them straight on the first time so you don't have to do so much work next time. Thanks again. Go fuck yourselves. If you liked the video, hit the like button. If you have a friend that can benefit from this video, hit the share button. And if you want to see more, hit the subscribe button. And as I've mentioned before, I am in no way, shape, or form a professional. So take everything I do with a grain of salt and do everything at your own discretion. I don't want you to fuck anything up, and I don't want you to get hurt. So this is all for educational purposes. I do it for fun. I'm not a professional. I can't stress that enough. So please be careful and be safe. I'll see you guys next time.